you give us a hand? Most of this shit is yours anyway.
Listen, run down to the store and pick me up a six-pack. I'll pay for it.
Son, beer's for adults.
Growing up, I was a big Blockbuster kid, and I would say amongst a couple other movies, I'd say Terminator 2, Gremlins 2, a couple others.
Spice World.
Definitely Spice World. Tremors was always there. Like, Tremors, I felt like was always in my pile of movies that I rented from Blockbuster.
You know, not having a plan is what keeps us doing jobs like this. Just doing jobs like this is you dragging your feet. Oh, you're gonna stand there and tell me in broad daylight that I'm the reason we're still in perfection? You know how close I am to leaving this place right now? I'll call that little bluff. How close? Oh, get
Well, pardon me, but you've had my attention.
But no, I mean, yeah, like, I rewatched the shit out of that movie. I wore that VHS out. Like, I was obsessed with it from an early age because I love monsters. And I know a lot of people, when they think monsters, they think of Universal monsters, they think of all this. When I think of monsters, I think of Tremors. Because for some reason, even though I know it doesn't take place in Texas, but as a little kid, I always thought it did. I don't know why. Yeah. I guess because of West Texas. But there's when you look at the background, there's the Sierra Mountains and shit like that. So it's not Texas at all. But, you know, it's got that heat element. It's got that daytime element. So you got
It feels like a Western.
So it definitely feels like a Western.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of the most like accessible monster movies that there are. Yeah. And I wonder, you know, whether this might be the most watched monster movie ever. Well, because of how much it plays on television, and because it seems like it's the kind of monster movie that you can watch, your little sister can watch, your grandfather can watch. You know, it's like it's not
so much fun. It's like the cartoon of monster movies too.
Yeah.
Cartoon, like, well, that comes into the horror comedy that this movie just redefines and nails.
Like, I mean, yeah, like you could talk about Evil Dead all day and all that. There's so many other horror comedies we all love, but Tremors, like, to me, is like a perfect example of horror and comedy because every time there's a comedic scene, within 3 seconds, they bring the horror back up, and there's like no like filler in between where you think something's off. Like, you don't think there's nothing off about it, which is just it just feels natural the way it's played out. Yeah, and that is hard to do.
And I think the best through line is the bromance
between Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. Yeah.
No breakfast? I did it yesterday. It was bologna and beans.
No, it was eggs. I did eggs.
Yeah.
Their bromance. I mean, there's typical movies in the past like 48 Hours and stuff where that's like the whole movie, whereas this acts as more of like the backbone.
Yeah.
And not just the comedic relief, but the tension and plot devices to get them through and out of these situations.
Two unlikely guys saving the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good luck, shithead.
Don't worry about me, jerk off.
And two of the most likable. The movie's full of likable characters.
And you know, it's in a weird way, the movie's kind of like a hangout movie with those two, because they're in every frame of this movie almost. And they're always together, you know, and like they're just like you said, like their chemistry is just perfect.
Yeah.
But not just between those two. Oh. Every person in this movie is so fleshed out, from Michael Gross to Reba fucking McEntire to Victor Wong. Like all these people just kick ass, and like you know who these people are within 5 minutes. And I rewatched it, you know, to prepare for this. And I remember like every scene you're introduced to a character, you know who they are. You know who these people are. Like, oh, you got this like kind of artsy hippie girl. Oh, you got this guy.
Archetypes.
Like, you got this doctor over here building a house. That like you know, like he's like some rich doctor. He's building a house, and which leads into my favorite death of the movie, that fucking station wagon.
One last time,
Getting like sucked into the underground.
So mysterious
so
and so
fucking
cool.
eerie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But real quick, let me shout out some names here, because I don't think a lot of people know who directed this movie or who wrote it. So the origin of the story would be writers S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock. they were working for the Navy at the time as like videographers, and they were out in the desert, I think around actually where they shot, which is kind of funny. And they were just doing some safety videos, some weird training stuff, and they were on this boulder, and they kind of thought to themselves, you know,
What if the ground was lava?
well, basically,
Yeah.
they're like, what if we couldn't move from this boulder because something was preventing us? And that's what brought us to Land Sharks, which was the original title to Tremors.
Oh, I thought it was Desert Dicks.
Well, that's a whole other So the effects artists, when they started making the worm, I don't know if you know this,
Yeah.
but before they made the head, it looked like a penis. And they were
Yeah.
like, and they literally, the producers had to come in and go, this looks like a penis.
Because they wanted the trunk, those like beaks to emerge from a foreskin like skin. And then no one was clued in that it looked like a penis until someone said
Yes.
something about desert dicks or something.
Yes. But
And
what's
they're
really
like,
cool.
"Oh, we're not gonna be working on the dick desert." What was it? He's like, "We're gonna be working on the dick worm movie or whatever."
Yeah.
And then they were like,
And
"It looks like a penis."
yeah.
Yes.
And to that point, we actually talked to one of the gentlemen who worked effects for Tremors,
Yes.
Doug Benson.
Nick.
Oh, sorry, Nick Benson. Yeah, wonderful guy. And he said just the feeling on set at the time was that they just really didn't think that much of it, you know.
And this was the first movie that ADI, technically, before they even came ADI.
One thing about the movie that I enjoyed was the
The production design is incredible.
production design
Incredible.
makes you feel like all these places are so lived in and everything. And I was doing a tiny bit of research and I found out that production designer had, there's this highway from LA to the set basically, and like 3-hour drive or something. And he had started purchasing shacks off of people who lived on the sides of the road all the way along, and they would dismantle them, take them to set, and rebuild them. So those are like raw materials that were aged for decades on other people's lands on the way out to this location.
Awesome.
So they would have been out there anyway.
Yeah.
And
You know,
could-
they just concentrated them,
Yeah.
You
essentially.
can find a documentary on YouTube about just that, like that production designer talking about it, and they actually go to the shooting location like nothing's there, and still there's nothing out there. Like they literally built this fake town in the middle of nowhere, and that place is still in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And they
Which-
only had 2 like studios setups,
Yeah.
like Chang's interior
Yes.
and something else. But
I would assume probably that station wagon scene probably had some stage stuff.
yeah, but everything else, they're in the
Yeah.
desert, you know, and they were in the elements and working through that. And I'm
Yeah,
sure
I mean,
that
going
was
back
fun.
to when we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like
Yeah.
this movie is just all daytime exteriors.
Right.
There's one night exterior scene. There's exterior scene. There's a couple interior scenes, like the general store and a couple other places. Bert's RV probably was a stage too. The interior of that, not RV, sorry, just this trailer.
I know what you're talking
But yeah, I mean, this movie is just top to bottom, just amazing talent. Not just in front of the camera, behind the camera. Ron Underwood, who directed this, he came in, a little later after the script was bought and stuff like that. And I guess apparently he was like a National Geographic director.
Yeah.
So he actually had some expertise on like animals and animal behavior and stuff like that. And apparently he came in with some notes about the head of it looking more like a
beak?
Yeah, the beak, like kind of more like a not a worm, but
A vulture?
Yeah, like more. I think he was trying to go for like a more of like
A beetle.
a beetle, like an insecty type thing.
Had that kind of opening claw.
Yeah. Yes.
mouth.
And I think that really like changed the game as far as what the effects guys.
I love seeing the different iterations of the graboids. Like they start kind of rudimentary, like a body puppet, and then they all of a sudden spawn.
Yeah.
And have multiple different arm.
Yeah, it's that
puppets
mystery of what's the rest of this monster down there. You're only getting the tip.
Yeah.
You're not, and that builds up quite a bit.
And there's a great scene where they're running against it and they jump and it hits the concrete.
Oh yeah.
And then, which is so awesome. It's such a satisfying kill, and I love when they cut from the busted head and then at the tail, he picks it up and you just see how massive these things are.
Yeah.
I found the ass end! Jesus, we really caught something here!
But we only get the top half.
Right.
Which I thought was really clever, how they shot that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they it had a real physicality to it that lended it its authenticity or like realism.
And we're gonna show like BTS clips because they have some amazing stuff with Tom Woodruff in this worm costume, this graboid costume, underground. And they're like slinging this guy around.
Yeah, for over an hour. Yeah.
And he's puppeteering all this. I'm sure they had other guys helping the puppeteering and stuff like that, but Tom Woodruff, shout out to him because he was in the graboid costume a lot.
Yeah. They said they had to bury him alive sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
I went inside one of the creatures that was basically suspended like a big cone shape on these heavy-duty springs, and I was underneath. And I had a little respirator mask on, and I had a walkie-talkie and a little flashlight, and basically camping out under there.
So yeah, the two besides obviously you got Ron Underwood, Ron Underwood, you got S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, but the other two big time heroes of this are Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. Those guys from ADI just killed it. Amongst the amazing effects team they had under them too. But those two guys, I think this is their first big project together. Before they became officially ADI, who, if you don't know them, just look at them on IMDb and you'll see what amazing stuff they've done.
Yeah.
They've done it all. They've done it all.
And again, going back to that choice of daylight and location, because daylight lends an authenticity to the horror and monster action that's going on.
As long as the monsters look good.
As long as the monsters
or else
look
it's
good.
too revealing.
But creepy darkness lends itself to obvious horror cliche. Yep. Where daytime scenes always create sort of a reality of this could happen anytime. This isn't a nighttime when the cobwebs and the bats fly out kind of thing.
This is right.
The other thing is the location is again, the influence of Jaws. Because you're talking about a landscape that a lot of people never visit, and most of this landscape most people never see.
No.
So what could be out there? Yeah. It's like this huge wasteland where it's almost believable that there could be a weird creature out there.
It's like the deep ocean, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like we only scratched the surface of this desert. We don't know what the hell's out there.
That's right. So when you're out in the desert, almost like when you're out in the ocean, you're kind of in a no man's territory. And you're on its terms, essentially.
Like I said, there's not a lot of horror films that take place in the desert when you think about it.
Yeah, it's more of like I think more like sci-fi. Like I think to like Dune as like the main influence on the worms. I think it might have been an accidental influence in this case because no one ever mentions Dune. I think in the making of
and no one ever mentions Blood Beach. Which is actually a movie that to me is like another Tremors.
Yes.
Because
show that title or show that cover art.
It's monsters in the sand coming up, swallowing people, big snake-like monsters. The monster in Blood Beach, I think, has more of a, when it opens up, it has more of a flower kind of look to it, like a man-eating kind of plant. But it's very similar, and that's an early 80s creature feature.
But Dune also has the be silent. You know, the main defense mechanism against the worms. Yeah. And it's like they can hear anything. It's all vibrations and stuff. Which is such a great plot device that Tremors uses and totally takes advantage of.
There he goes.
He's chasing it! He's chasing it!
It's going! This one's going too!
And once they figure it out, you feel smart as an audience member too. You're like, oh, we know what to do. And then when somebody isn't doing it, you're like, stop moving, idiot, stop, stop, the whole time, you know? And I think I got really excited when they released the pilot.
For the TV series.
For the TV series that didn't happen. I wasn't stoked for it or anything, but I think there was like a shot that got me excited, and it was trying to recreate the wagon scene, or the scene where it's eating the vehicle.
Yeah.
And there was a woman in it this time, and someone was going to see if she was okay, and she puts a sign on the window like speed, and it says, "Don't say a word," or it says, "Shut the fuck up," or something.
Yeah, don't make a noise. Yeah.
Quiet or whatever. And that just like brought back those old feelings from the early 90s watching this movie, being like terrified just not to make a noise. And because like, when you're a kid, you're like crawling around the house trying to be, sneak up on each other and stuff and be quiet and like act like a ninja, play like ninja.
This is also a game
of
of hot lava.
It's hot lava with a ninja element.
Yeah,
It's like total kid material.
Right.
One thing I noticed too, rewatching it, that I kind of can't think of another horror movie that does this, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but they don't open on a scare. They don't open on a terrifying sequence. They open with Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward hanging out.
Being goofballs.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get out of here. They're just trying to get out of this town.
But it's great exposition for the town and for the
Right.
world. It builds the world so quick.
That's why I love that. They're on their way out of this town. Goodbye, see you later. And they see the corpse in the tower.
Yeah.
And
you
that
think
alone
it's just a drunk
is
guy.
terrifying. They're like, oh my God, he's hungover. And when you find out he dehydrated, and you go, okay, well, why did he dehydrate? Yeah, that takes like, what, 4 days or something like that? So how long was he up there for?
Yeah.
You've
seen the results of something.
Yes. What a great setup.
Yeah.
And then again, you don't see anything. You see the ground shaking in one scene.
Yeah, just like Jaws.
Yeah.
Same elements as Jaws. You see all the elements around the shark without seeing the shark.
Yes. And then when you finally see it, it's such a satisfying thing because it's.
And then then you're like, what do we do now?
Yeah, you're fucked. And you have Bert, who is one of the best characters in this.
Yeah.
Obviously, he ended up being the champion of the series. But Michael Gross, man,
the MacGyver,
amazing guy,
just amazing.
Yeah.
And, but the fact that he, even a survivalist, with his wife. They are underprepared too.
So,
you know what I mean? Which is amazing. Because that's the guy you go to when things like this go down.
Hey, wait, this stalled out your truck? Have to be one strong son of a bitch.
Stinks too.
One factoid about him that I learned it's hilarious to me is the day he finished shooting his part of Family Ties and that wrapped up that whole part of his life as a dad. The next day he started Tremors, which is one phase of his life with no gap to the next phase of his life,
that's
as an
amazing,
actor.
And then speaking of the actors in this, obviously there's one big star in here, Fred Ward. No, I love Fred Ward, but no, Kevin Bacon. There's some interesting stuff about Kevin Bacon on this one. Now, Kevin Bacon now looks back on this movie, he loves it, but I think at the time he was going through a real rough time. After Footloose, his career wasn't going very well, and I remember apparently they said that when he first got the script, he was like, oh my God, my career's in the shitter, that I'm doing a movie about underground worms. Like, what am I doing? But now I think he looks back on it and he really likes it. He said that
his wife was pregnant too, and
that's
that
right.
was
He was
a hardcore
thing. He
thing.
was scared. He was a leading man. He wasn't a leading man anymore. This was his chance to get back at it. And the movie didn't do very well at the box office, but this goes back to the home video market.
Right.
How much this movie dominated the home video market, and half of it's probably me. But no, seriously, they made much, much more money on home video rentals and purchases. Apparently, it was one of the most rented movies of the 1990s.
Yeah, I believe
throughout
it.
the whole
believe
90s.
it. Yeah, and definitely again one of the most broadcasted horror or monster movies.
Oh my God! How many times you see it on Superstation?
Yeah, it's like the Shawshank Redemption of monster movies.
Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Reba McEntire. These guys are gonna save the world?
I found the rear end!
Tremors on USA, Saturday night at 8.
And maybe like the last great monster movie during that time period.
Original monster movie
For sure, because there was some bad times in the 90s in regards to that.
The best of times, the worst of times.
Yeah, and of course, during the late 80s, the whole rubber effects, push was starting to kind of eat itself up a little bit. But this was like just one last classic maybe to come out of that era, and it's obviously survived and turned out a bunch of really cool sequels too.
Yeah, yeah. First and foremost, the sequel to this movie, number 2, which we'll talk about another day.
Yeah.
But I will recommend number 2 all day long. You can probably stop after that. But number 2 rules. You can watch these back to back, and it's a fun night. Like, I promise you.
You smoked his ass.
Doing what I can with what I got.
Did Reba McEntire do any acting before this? I wasn't sure about that.
As far as I know, no.
Okay.
But I do remember hearing an interview with her being like, this might have been her like feature debut.
Okay.
She might have done some TV stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I know she had like that big show in the 90s or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But
Yeah, forgive
Reba.
us for not knowing that, but she's fantastic in this.
Reba's great.
Yeah.
Reba is top notch.
Yeah.
She is perfect. I wish she was in the sequel.
Perfect in that role.
She is so good, and she's so funny. Like the way like she delivers her lines.
She sinks her teeth into it. She really does.
Magazine!
Yeah, and like when she's holding the gun too, like she holds it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
She's not like scared. Like she's really doing it. You know, it's fucking awesome. Like she is a bad.
You believe
motherfucker.
that they have that basement full of ammunition.
You do.
And they
You
okay,
do.
so real quick, okay, that scene is one of my favorite scenes ever. When that graboid crashed into the wall, there's such a great reveal because you don't know where they are yet. You don't know it's the rec room. Okay, so like when that happens. And the camera pulls away, or like kind of pans to the left. You see the wall of just guns, and they're just going and like da-da-da, and like they just like use all their resources on this thing.
Yeah.
It's satisfying. It's a really good scene, like where you think they're gonna get it, and then I love. There's a great editing thing where Val and what's his face are on top of the roof and on the walkies. And they're trying to tell Michael Gross's character, Bert, to get out of there. Get on the roof, get on the roof, tell him to get on the roof. And all they do is all they hear is screams from them, and the radio goes dead.
Yeah.
And they're just like, fuck. And then all of a sudden they hear, Jesus Christ! And they kind of had this like faint smile, or like, oh, okay, like they're fighting back, And there's something that's so simple but like enjoyable about that like 10 seconds of like complete bummer to being like, oh my god, these guys have a chance.
Well, it's that same Star Wars plot device when R2 or C-3PO can hear them, and all he can hear is them screaming in the trash compactor.
Yeah.
Listen to them. They're dying, R2.
Yeah, it's that same bit, but it plays well because what you see might not be correct, but what you hear, it's like that whole God.
Yeah, I mean this
Misdirection.
movie has it all. It really does. It's got everything. It's got. I mean, like literally, I can't think of one flaw in this movie. That's kind of rare for me. I'm sure there was production problems, as far as effects go and low budget. They were on a really low budget for this one,
It's so solid.
It's so
front to
solid.
back. It's solid.
Yeah. And it just breezes through. There's no slogs in it.
I've
at
never
all.
met anyone who doesn't like it.
No.
Yeah.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
It's like someone who doesn't like Sandlot. It's like, who doesn't like Sandlot?
Right.
Idiot. Get over it.
And it has that kind of feeling as a movie, like almost like a Amblin type feel to it in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's the underdog story. Everybody loves a good underdog story, and these guys find themselves in a remote but also like familiar environment.
Right.
But they get forced into a situation that they've never encountered. Then you just have to watch them figure it out.
Yeah.
And they play the ultimate game of the floor is lava. It's just a cartoon movie for kids, but adults can like eat it up because it's scary at the same time for everybody. Because even as an adult or a kid, they're going through the same thing.
Yeah. It's one of the most exciling monster movies,
exciting.
that I can remember seeing.
Again, it's just satisfying. Just everything about it satisfying.
Yeah.
There's one scene that I never caught until I saw it again recently with the opening credits, actually. And it's because the two main characters are handymen, so they're just going from place to place, fixing shit, building fences. And the very opening scene, they're building a fence, and Kevin Bacon comments on this, which kudos to him. That's very funny of him. And great, and kudos to Fred Ward for his reaction to this. It was a tiny little thing. But when Kevin Bacon has a hammer in his hand and he's hammering the post, you could tell he's probably never picked up a hammer in his life. And there's a moment where he's doing it and it's like sloppy, and then he like walks over off camera, and Fred Ward like goes and he looks at his work and he's like,
yeah, it's perfect.
So perfect.
It's perfect.
It's so good.
Kind of
like,
encapsulates their relationship.
It's little things like that like make me smile in that movie. It's just so good, and the whole idea of like Burt like waiting for World War III.
Burt, I think that this is the first time that I learned about what a prepper is.
Oh, like a survivalist.
Yeah, I don't know at my age. This might be the first time that I was exposed to that and kind of figured out what that would be.
Yeah. You know? I didn't know what that was. I just thought he's like guns. You know, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Sure, yeah.
But there's a little thing that I never...
Lives in a bunker.
Yes, literally. Yes. And it's actually a good character and story thing, because remember at one point he's like, the mountains block our radio, no one can get to us, that's why I moved here. He was like, that's why I came here.
Yes.
All of a
no
sudden,
one gets in, no one gets out.
Now you're isolated.
All of a sudden, you realize, all these things that are against everybody else are a benefit to him.
Yes.
But now, as a prepper, he's prepped for everything but this.
Yes.
And so now he's got to figure it out with what he has.
Doing what I can with what I got.
But luckily, he has a shitload of ammunition.
Yeah.
He's ready.
It's the one time where you're like, right, wait, we need the guy with the guns. We need a lot of guns. But like, there's a great little thing I never caught until recently. On his truck, it has a little bumper sticker that says "Free Afghanistan," which for 1990,
wow, yeah,
that is like super out there. You know what I mean? Like people back then would be like, fucking weirdo, like what the fuck is he talking about? You know? But it's almost like he was in that like weird kind of like pseudo, like maybe he used to be a hippie and like turned a leaf, you know, like who knows, you know? But like I thought that was a nice little like just an extra thing to put on his character. Again, like all these characters are so fleshed out.
I love when Chang is gonna like sell tickets to like look at the.
The first thing he does when he sees the tentacle wrapped around the truck, he goes, "I'll give you $10 for it," and he goes, and he's like, they're like 20, and he's like 15. They're like, all right, and then later on, they're like, we're not gonna get $20 for this. Like we're gonna get more, you know.
Which is great because it makes him sort of prophetic, because in that pilot, you know, perfection becomes famous for the graboids, and like Chang saw it a mile away. It was like they're gonna come from everywhere.
Yes.
Now that they've pitched me a fat one, I'm gonna smack it right out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I also love the name Perfection for the town.
Name.
Like a play on Perdition, but at the same time, like also just works on its own as
population 14.
Yeah, it's perfection.
I'll
like
never
a lot
that.
of people's idea of perfection is getting away from neighbors and like, you know.
It's basically like Marfa in Texas. Except it's not a hippie commune.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's just a general store, and like that's all I need.
And a couple trailers, basically. Yeah. And again, all that stuff they built in that town was not there. Like, in my mind, even as a little kid, I thought, okay, maybe some of this existed, you know, and they just kind of added onto it. Man, they go back to that shooting location like present day, and there's nothing out there. And the director's out there being like, yeah, it's a little grown over now. But he's like, you can kind of still see why we picked this place, you know? Because it's just, you scream, no one's going to hear you. Yeah.
It's a beautiful location. Does all the heavy lifting for locations in the movie.
Seeing those like mountains in the background, you're just like, oh, it's so breathtaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it really defined in the 90s for me. It kind of honestly ruined every vacation after that, because I'm like, God, Texas is so flat.
Right.
Like, this is nothing like Tremors.
Right, yes. Tremors lied to me.
You know, it wasn't until I was able to get up to Colorado or even like Arizona where I was finally like, oh, fuck, mountains.
Yeah.
This is tight.
Apparently there was like some, you know, like I saw like in the rumors a little bit there that like originally it was going to be rated R, but not because of violence, because there were a lot of F-bombs, I guess, originally, which explains a lot when you see like the edited versions, and he says, instead of can you fly fucker, he says, can you fly sucker, and instead of motherfucker, he says mother humper.
But he still gets a good fuck you.
And it's satisfying. You
it's
get
real
one fuck,
satisfying.
and it works. Yes. Yeah, I thought that was interesting though, because usually when movies are rated R, it's because of violence most of the time, or sex, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one they were like, the violence is fine. You just gotta cut those F words out. Yeah, and you know, at that time especially, you know, they wanted a bigger
mass
audience.
appeal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that still flies today, you know, to some degree. But you know, at the end of the day, the rating doesn't matter. The movie's the movie. Like taking a couple of F words out of it doesn't ruin anything. You know what I mean? At all. Now, I will say this: if you saw it on TV back in the day, there were some weird edits that I noticed. Like instead of "fuck you," I think he said something like "freak you," and I remember as a kid just being like, "Ugh, this is so awful." It's like if you ever seen Big Lebowski and that famous line John Goodman says, "This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the Alps." On TV, it's
This is what happens, Larry. This is what happens when you find a stranger in the woods, or when you.
We're gonna play it.
Is it fine? I think it's find a stranger in the woods.
Yeah, play it. Roll the clip.
You see what happens, Larry? You see what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps?
That was really interesting, though. It's one of the rare movies I know of that cut, you know, down because of language as opposed to violence. You know, yeah. I mean, the one thing I will say too, real quick, going back to it, is that you know. Shout out to Michael Gross for sticking with the franchise all those years. You know what I mean? And apparently he still wants to do them. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean,
so much fun.
Look, I know that after 2 they relied on CGI. You know, and that's a bummer. You know, but the one thing that's consistent about this franchise is Michael Gross. I mean, he is amazing.
Yeah.
And then you know, Kevin Bacon, props to him for coming back and giving it a shot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people, and we talked about this a lot. A lot of people when they work on horror movies or any type of movie, they're kind of embarrassed about.
Especially if they are like A-listers.
Yeah, like their career skyrocketed afterwards or something like that. You know, I always like it when they go back and go, "Oh, that was a good time."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they embrace their roots.
Retrospect,
as you should, but for whatever reason, a lot of actors are embarrassed of where they came from.
Yeah. But coming soon, Tremors 2 episode for sure. I'll make you guys watch it. You'll love it.
Yeah. Oh, I do love the Arrow release. Arrow video release.
I haven't seen it.
I don't know if they did this for Tremors, but I love Arrow so much.
Yeah, me too.
They did a RoboCop release. That's like my favorite. They released a VHS version of it, so it has like it's just like a VHS recording or whatever, and it's a lot of fun to watch because if you were raised watching it one way, it looks like total shit.
Yeah,
and you're just like, yes. I don't know. It's kind of my preferred way to watch that.
Yeah,
but they did a great job on the thing. I mean, it's just like it makes it like it's a brand new product all over again.
Yeah,
that feeling of seeing it in a box is like really fun, just like it was, you know, Blockbuster in the 90s.
Well, you know what? One thing that I need to do before I don't have the chance anymore is I would love to see Tremors on the big screen. I've never seen that before.
Wow, yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it. I've never seen it on the big screen.
Great poster, too, with the Jaws ripoff, you know?
Oh, so good. And I love that they just use a close-up of the tentacle face. They don't show you the worm. Like, that's so smart.
Right.
If you guys at home haven't noticed, we kind of love it and embrace when movies rip each other off. It's like looking back on cinema and paying homage is part of creation.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no like new idea under the sun. So if you ever hear us say rip off or like they stole that, that's like kind of just like we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
So
Right.
just all that is just an homage and a look to the past to say we recognize that.
Absolutely.
And you did the best job.
All good artists lift from other great artists.
It's impossible. I mean, and it's
look at Quentin Tarantino and tell me there's like a unique thing in his films.
Right.
And I
But
love
they're great.
his movies.
Yeah,
But
and they're the best films out there.
Like if I watch his movies, I'm just like I'm just entranced, you know. Like, but like of course he's lifting all these things from other things.
And
that
that's
he
what makes
loves.
them so great because he's lifting them out of the recesses of our minds because we've all seen these things before.
It's one thing to be lazy about it. Anybody can be lazy and rip something off and just be like, oh, we'll just do that, you know, like oh, we'll make another Ghostface killer.
Well, we probably wouldn't
like
talk about one of those movies anyway.
Right.
Yeah. We're talking about when they do it right.
Yeah. And also, you know, I mean, there are like maybe some you know, the basic building blocks of fear that you probably can't get away from, and I think those building blocks start to show up in the movies.
All the raw materials
that work. Yeah. Isolation.
Yeah.
You know, again, being in an atmosphere that you can't control, you have no control over, like the ocean.
Environments.
Yeah. Those basic building blocks of human fear, they end up getting reused because they can be reused again and again and again.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and work. And you take that and put a little tiny spin on it, and
just like that. Fear of the unknown.
yeah, just like that.
Whoa.
Just like that. Ghosts.
Wow.
Actually, are one of my fears. So, all right.
I'm really sorry.
Great show, guys.
Fred Ward, I'm really sorry.
All right, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred Ward's Ghost. I know I didn't mention you very much, but I love you so much.
Love you, Fred Ward. I was a big fan.
Yeah,
Southern Comfort is one of my favorite movies.
Southern Comfort freaking rules.
I
and
love
so does Joe Dirt.
Fred Ward. Seriously,
Yeah.
no, I'm not kidding. Like you
Dirt.
rule. You rule in number 2 as
Yeah.
well. Fuck yeah, Joe Dirt, baby.
All right,
Hey.
bye.
Bye.
That's great.
That was Fred Ward's Ghost when you think about it.
Yeah.
You dumb shit.